The former Minister of Communications, Works, Transport Public Utilities, in his press conference held yesterday, March the 6th, 2014, disputed the following facts: that his brothers and close affiliates received a substantial work from the government of Saint Lucia between 2007 and 2011. He said that the WASCO estimate of $65,561.72 for the clearing of the Vanard and Ravine Poisson project, which was paid to Mr. Rytis Joseph at a cost of $242,000, related to cost estimates dating back to 1993. He argued that the advance payment certificate was issued to Asphalt and Mine Saint Lucia Limited in February 2012, and that he had no knowledge of this arrangement. To my mind, Mr. Joseph continues in his usual manner to twist the facts to the people of Saint Lucia. It is indeed a fact that between 2007 and 2011, the brothers and immediate relations of Mr. Guy Joseph received works that totaled $2,996,801.18. $2,996,801.18. Of particular interest is that the bulk of this work relates to soft works, such as clearing of drains and desilting of rivers, which cannot be verified today, and most were given by direct award, recommended by the Ministry of Communications, Works, Transport, and Public Utilities. Mr. Joseph also claimed that the award of a contract valued at $63,300 to Mr. Glenroy Ramjuran for site clearing works at the proposed new terminal at George F.L. Charles Airport started under the Ministry of Planning in 2007. As it can be seen by the direct award, which I will show you in a while, the award was dated January 16, 2008, and it was issued by the Ministry of Communications, Works, Transport, and Public Utilities. The WASCO letter Mr. Guy Joseph made reference to was a totally different letter to the one discussed in Parliament. I also note that Mr. Joseph had some great difficulty reading aloud the actual letter on a talk show on DBS television, to the extent that he requested assistance from his hosts. The letter in question, dated April 2nd, 2010, the letter in question, dated April 2nd, 2010, was from the managing director of WASCO, and it stated, among other things, and I will give you a copy of that letter: it is customary and indeed industry practice to hire such equipment on an hourly and daily rates. We, meaning WASCO, are familiar with rates as high as $300 per hour for this type of work, and given the scope, the resultant invoice suggests an unconscionable hourly rate. And that invoice, which I will show you here, is invoice number RJ103. It's for $240,250, and it's from Mr. Rytis Joseph. I'll also show you WASCO's estimate of that work, which is on a water and sewage letterhead, and it's for $65,561. I will also show you pictures of the work coming from officials of WASCO. it says a WASCO memorandum describing the work that was done, and I can read it for you. And I can read it for you. It said, it's the inter-office memorandum coming from the WASCO. It reads as follows: extent of excavation work in clearing the Ravine, Poisson, and Vanard intakes. And it reads, the decision was taken by Cabinet to assist in the refurbishment of the above two old abandoned raw water intakes and pumping stations previously used by WASCO before the commissioning of the Millet Gravity Intake and Sir John Compton Dam in 1993 and 1995, respectively. The responsibility of the excavation and clearing of the intakes would remain with the government through the Ministry of Communications, Works, Transport and Public Utilities. After a site visit to the intakes, along with the Minister of Communications and Works, together with his chief engineer, a decision was taken that a big excavator would be required to do the job because of the extended reach of the boom that was necessary to carry out the works, especially at the Vanard intake and pond. The priority work area was the Vanard intake for the commencement. However, when the excavator was sent up some 2 days later, because of low buoy and availability, it went to the Ravine Poisson intake. The work started at the intake and took 3 days to complete the desilting to the required WASCO standard. Following are some photos showing the extent of cleaning which was done at the intakes. And I will give you a copy for yourself of the photos that are coming from WASCO. And that work was costed by WASCO, to be $65,561.72. And the bill from Mr. Rytis Joseph was $240,250. Let me tell you the extent of the work that was done by Mr. Rytis Joseph at the Ravine, Poisson, and Vanard intakes as signified by an inter-office memorandum from WASCO. Here it goes. This is the photo of the channel cut from the existing river flow to the old existing pond. The channel measured 121 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 7 feet deep. However, it had to be dug an additional 3 to 4 feet. That's the existing channel. Second, this is showing the old existing pond before it was cleaned. It measures 47 feet long by 40 feet wide and approximately 20 feet deep. The following photo shows the area before the outer new pond was dug. Next photo. This is the new pond at Vanard, measuring 67 feet long and 56 feet wide at the widest point and more than 12 feet deep. The following is the photo of the Ravine Poisson intake, which was completely silted up. The cleared area measured 43 feet across 79 feet long. Silt was removed to a depth of 4 feet at the wall and 3 feet to the far side of the photo. The following is a photo of the overflow drain from the new outer pond. It measured 100 feet long by 15 feet across with a slope depth of 4 feet. The following shows the overflow drain. This shows the new pond with the uncut section, which is to link the main diversion drain from the existing river course in the background. This section measured 17 feet wide by 16 feet long and 12 feet high from the pond base. The above photo shows the cleaned old existing pond with the existing clean outlet. This is the final job. And according to WASCO, that took, according to a WASCO inter-office memorandum, that took 3 days. The work started at the intake and took a total of 3 days to complete the desilting to the required standard by WASCO. That is to WASCO's required standard, 3 days. And according to WASCO's estimate, that job is supposed to cost as follows. Detailed: WASCO costing on Vanard and Ravine project, Ravine Poisson project. It says, payments made to date. Saint Lucia Electricity Services, Vanard, $6,844. Ravine Poisson, $28,000. Accountant General, electrical inspection. That was after it was cleared. That was the cost for electrical inspection. Labor, unclogging, and it says unclogging what I just said there, and it says it even has meal allowances, and even has paint, the paint purchase, and the total, according to WASCO, is $65,561.72. And according to an invoice from Mr. Rytis Joseph, invoice number RJ103, and it reads, excavation of WASCO water catchment areas, Ravine Poisson and Sarot intakes, $240,250. $240,250. When that invoice was received by the managing director of WASCO, it caused him, when he saw that, he wrote a letter to the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Communication Works at the time, claiming that these rates are unconscionable. And he'd like to see the contractual arrangements that caused these rates to happen. So in total, what happened is instead of paying $65,000 for a job, instead of paying $65,000 for a job, WASCO, and by extension the taxpayers of Saint Lucia, paid $240,000. I continue. In relation to the payment certificates for the Bocas, Sunbuilt, and Enchipo to Independent City Road Rehabilitation Project executed by Asphalt and Mining, all issued payment certificates were based on the contractual terms to which the government of Saint Lucia was bound. The contract was signed on October 13th, 2011. The contract was signed on October 13th, 2011, and I have a copy, which I'll make available to you, of the contract and when it was signed. It reads, contract agreement. This agreement made the 13th day of October 2011 between the Ministry of Communications Works, Transport and Public Utilities, hereinafter called the employer, on the one part, and Asphalt and Mining Saint Lucia Company Limited. 13th October. This contract, within the contract data of under subclause 14.2, subclause 14.2, the government was bound to an advance payment of 20% of the accepted contract price. 20% of the accepted contract price on a contract that was signed in October. So the government of Saint Lucia was bound by that contract, and we had to do what the contract said. But it is also interesting that on the official contract documents, the asphalt and mining witness is Mistress Bofilinia Ramjuran of Forestier Castries. You may need to do some investigative journalism to find out who that person is. It should also be noted on that same contract, a memo from the then Ministry of Communication and Works, dated 27th June 2011, and the memo is headed Advice on Castries Urban Roads Rehabilitation Project, and the memo reads, the memo 2711, the technical offices of the ministry wrote expressing their concern over the cost of the asphalt and mining road rehabilitation project when compared to the ministry's prevailing rates. The letter states, it was determined that the overall cost of the project can be negotiated downwards to no more than $8,631,239.57. That was the recommendation of the technical staff of the ministry. I will give you details of the costing and the difference in what was paid. What the contract, the original contract from Asphalt and Mining was EC $10,454,483. And after that memo was sent, the contract was signed for $9,486,138, a difference of $854,899. So between what the ministry was recommending for the job, based on the ministry's estimates, and the contract with Asphalt and Mining, there was a difference of $854,000. So in spite of the technical officers of the ministry saying that the contract was not worth more than $8.6 million, the government signed a contract with A&M for $9.4 million. And some of what caused the variations, and we have picked up from the contract some exact differences. I'll give you an example. An example. There is a rubber wall, 2 millimeters long by 1 millimeter high, 300 millimeter thick. It is, the measurements are 35. The contract rate is $1,250 at 43, totaling $43,750. That's what the contract says. The government technocrat said that contract, that should have been built for $46,000. I'll give another example. The asphaltic concrete surfacing, 50 millimeters thick to include the tack coat. Quantity, 10,317. The contract rate was $120. That's what the taxpayers signed for. The ministry recommended that could be done for $95. Technicians to the ministry, and the difference which the taxpayers will pay for is $257,925. I'll give you another example. The rock-filled Gabion baskets. The ministry says that could have been done for $313,248. The contract was signed for $479,648. These are the differences, the variances between what the technicians of the ministry said the contract could have been executed for and what the taxpayers of Saint Lucia will eventually pay for. A contract signed in October 2011. I have, for members of the press, if they're interested, we have copies of the direct award given to Glenroy Ramjuran. And you may recall that the minister said, the parliamentary rep said last night on DBS that that was from the Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Planning, and it related to some investors who were in the country for something happened at the Gaiety. I don't know if you read, that's what, and he said it was in 2007. The DBS representative said, you can correct me if I'm wrong, he said 2007. That direct award is dated 16th January 2008. And it was for Mr. Glenroy Ramjuran at a sum of 63,300. And it said, for side cleaning works at the proposed new terminal at VG. Side cleaning works at a new terminal in VG. Members of the press may want to find out where that new terminal has been built and what site was cleared. I can remain corrected on that. So, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I hope I've clarified all the issues as they relate to the allegations or to the defense set up by the Honorable Guy Joseph last night.